Hello everybody, good afternoon and welcome once again to the Montgomery County Executive's weekly media briefing and public health update. I'm Laura Virgili, Hispanic Public Information Officer, and today we're having a hybrid event. That means we're going to have a bill signing ceremony right here in the Executive Office building, and after that we are going to transition into the public health update and other topics via Zoom, virtually. So this week, the County Executive will use this media briefing to sign Bill 1423, which is the Late Night Business Safety Plan bill that he introduced to the County Council earlier this year. Joining the County Executive right here with us this afternoon are Council members Kate Stewart, Sidney Katz, Don Lutke, and also Natalie Fanny Gonzalez. Montgomery County Police Chief Marcus Jones is also in the room, as well as Stephanie Helsing, who is the president of the Greater Silver Springs Chamber of Commerce. Joining us virtually this afternoon as well is Health Officer Keisha Davis, as well as Sean O'Donnell from the Department of Health and Human Services. With that, Mr. County Executive, good afternoon, and the podium is yours.
So thank you, and thank everybody for joining us here today. And to start by saying, it's a good occasion to be celebrating this new law that will soon be in place to address crime and safety concerns in the county. There are a lot of things we're doing that I never thought we'd be doing. I don't think anybody thought we'd be doing in Montgomery County, but we're having problems we never thought we'd have in Montgomery County. And so the responses that we've put together are appropriate for the issues that we are now dealing with. National and local problems have been a focus for quite a while. We know we're not an island, but we're not isolated from everything else. But what happens every place else doesn't mean that we don't need to respond locally. And last year I met with business leaders and community members and other elected leaders to discuss safety concerns in downtown Silver Spring. And we've worked with the police department to develop new methods to reduce potential threats more easily and respond to crime more quickly. And so you'll see license plate readers in Silver Spring, you'll see more cameras, you'll see cameras on top of poles with nice blue lights, and you'll see a better partnership with Maryland State Police. So we've worked to try to build these better relationships. Perception is reality, and we absolutely need to get more done. And examples of what we're working are improving lighting and adding security and requiring handheld metal detectors and security cameras for some businesses. And what changes are needed will be determined as we review businesses' late night safety plans, which they'll be required to provide us. I appreciate the efforts of some business owners proactively who have already implemented the safety plan and are moving forward and aren't waiting for this legislation to be in place. Penalties for non-compliance will be real, and to be blunt, businesses could face closures if they do not comply. If we continue to have incidents, this could ultimately lead to a business being shut down, and we hope it doesn't come to that. We came to this after realizing many calls for police service were coming from late night establishments or coming from events that occurred in late night establishments and then wound up on the streets. And most businesses aren't prepared for this, never having dealt with problems of this magnitude before. Nobody was prepared for the situation they found themselves in. And we know that businesses don't want a bad reputation, and it's not good for Silver Spring or any place else in the county to have a bad reputation if we expect people to come to Montgomery County and come here to enjoy the nightlife and all the things we have to offer. So we want a thriving nightlife economy. We want businesses to be able to thrive. We want a better balance in the vibrancy of our nightlife and safety, and I think that's a reasonable thing that we're doing, and I want to thank the council. You took our bill and made additional amendments to it. I think it's strong, defensible, and it's absolutely the right thing to do. I've already had inquiries from people not in Silver Spring that have said they think they have similar issues with some establishments, and we will be sure that we look at this on a countywide basis. So we want everybody here to feel like this is a safe place to go. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Kate. Is it random? have a copy of it.
Great. Thank you everyone very much. I'm Kate Stewart, the County Council Member for District 4, and I want to thank the County Executive very much for sending this bill to us, and send a particular thanks to my colleagues, the Chair of the Public Safety Committee, Sydney Katz, Council Member Dawn Lukey, who also serves on the Public Safety Committee, and Council Member Kristen Mink for their work, and to my colleague, Council Member Natalie Fanning-Gonzalez. Yes, we did get this bill from the County Executive, and through working in partnership, I believe we landed in a great place for our communities moving forward. I also want to extend a thank you to Director Earl Stoddard in the County Executive's Office for his work on this, and Commander McBain and Captain Reed, who are in District 4 and particularly been working in the downtown Silver Spring area. In particular, it's the work that Captain Reed has been doing over the last few years that really serves as a model of building a partnership between our businesses, especially those that are open late at night, and our county departments, in particular the police department. I want to note that this bill is a great step forward. It provides a tool for us to use, but it's not the only thing we need to do. There is so much more we need to do. And in particular, we need to recognize the fact that what we're facing throughout the county, not just in Silver Spring, but in communities across Montgomery County, is a rise in gun violence. And this is an issue that is both one we're facing here in the county as well as the state and nationally. And I do want to thank Governor Moore for his actions lately regarding the legislature, for them moving forward in gun safety legislation. But most importantly, as the District 4 person, I know what's most important to all of us is how we feel in our community, and making sure that when we go out at night, when our children go out, when our families go out, that we feel safe in our community. And that is the step we're taking today, to work in partnership with our local businesses to make sure that people feel safe when they go out and enjoy all that we have here in Montgomery County. So I want to thank all the partners, and also Stephanie, who's here from the Chamber, and all her great work. And I will now turn it over to Councilmember Katz, the Chair of Public Safety.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Stewart, and thank you to all who've been involved in this. This truly was a partnership from the very beginning. We knew that there was a problem. The county executive, along with Dr. Stoddard, sent over information, and Councilmember Stewart, the local district council member, along with everyone who's been mentioned, we sat down to figure out what's the best way forward. My background is, and I'm a small retailer, I'm somebody that wants businesses to prosper. But I'm also somebody that realizes that if you want your business to prosper, it has to be safe. It has to be safe for you. It has to be safe for your patrons. It has to be safe for the neighborhood. And we had so many businesses, and I applaud the Chamber of Commerce. We had so many businesses come forward and stand with us, give us their good thoughts, and say, this is a good idea, but we can have a better idea. And we decided, and we worked together to come up with what I believe is not going to be perfect legislation, but it's going to be good legislation, and we're going to learn from it. And we have a very fine police chief, as well as a very fine police department, who's going to work with us along with other departments to figure out if there's something that needs to change, then we're going to change it. We all want what this legislation is after, and this legislation is saying we want all businesses to be successful, and we want all businesses to be safe, and to keep everyone in the area safe. And with that, I'm going to turn it back. I'll turn it over to Councilmember Lukey, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, everyone up here, for being so collaborative and cooperative in working through this piece of legislation. And I am incredibly proud of it, not because it was my idea, it was not, but because I was allowed to participate in helping to make it better. And really coming at it from the perspective of positive risk management and recognizing the need to be proactive and collaborative with our law enforcement partners, with our other licensing partners, and so you'll see pieces of the bill that add that to it. that really look at the full landscape of how a business operates within the community, protecting health and safety of the community, and making sure we're taking into consideration different voices and perspectives from around the county. So I am thankful for having had the opportunity to work on this, and I look forward to, again, expanding the different tools in our toolkit to help make our communities safer. Thank you. Turning it over to Councilmember Natalie Fanny Gonzalez.
Just want to thank the county executive for moving this forward. Once his proposal was on the table, I shared with different businesses in Wheaton. And the wonderful thing is that it wasn't just me talking to businesses. I was joined by the police department. This is a partnership to make sure communities are safe. It takes a village, as you all know, and having the cooperation, the active cooperation of our police department, of the county executive and the county council with the business community working together, and our residents to ensure that people can feel safe to go out and have a drink and have a beer. And because I do, very often, in Wheaton specifically, it's something that it's part of having vibrant communities, and you gotta say it. At some point, my kids are gonna grow up, they're gonna be teenagers, and they're gonna be working at some point in maybe one of these restaurants, and I wanna make sure they're safe. I say this as a mom too. So thank you so much for being here. I'm gonna pass it to our police chief, Mark Jones, so he can share some remarks.
Thank you. So, good afternoon. First and foremost, I also echo those thoughts of thanks to the county executive, to the council members, and to the Silver Spring Chamber of Commerce, because there was a lot of leadership on their part. And I'm very grateful of the men and women from my department who worked hard as well to help work with the county to come up with this. You know, Montgomery County really is changing and has changed from the type of community that, we really didn't have a lot of late night activities in this county for a very long time. And now it's changed. We have communities such as Silver Spring, Wheaton, as well as areas of Rockville and Bethesda that continue to have a nightlife. And that's a great thing. And along with that comes safety, because not only do we have a changing community as it relates to nightlife, but we also have residential communities that are mixed in with those businesses that are having a late night events. So with that being said, this is why this will work for everyone. I think this is beneficial for everyone, not only just the businesses and their patrons, their employees, but also those residents who live in those communities where this will occur in the late night. So we're grateful that we are going to be able to work with our business community, and grateful for those who have already jumped on board and have really come up with great plans that have created really safety plans that we have had little activity from a police standpoint to have to be involved in their activity. So that's where we're trying to, that's the goal we're trying to get to. And we're just grateful that this legislation will help those who maybe are not so much wanting to jump in, but we're willing to partner with them in order to do so. So again, from that standpoint, it's a debt of gratitude for us, because it will help us in the police department to really help Montgomery County maintain its safety. So thank you so much.
There's already been a lot said. Again, my name is Stephanie Helsing. I am the new president and CEO of the Greater Silver Spring Chamber of Commerce. And being so new to the job, I feel like I was just handed a gift. I was handed a gift by the county executive presenting this bill. I was handed a gift by the county being so diligent when they met in making sure that they understood the needs of the businesses, and they were really concerned about the impact of the overall safety plan for the businesses. So the due diligence is definitely something that the business community would like to say thank you for. We're really excited about the collaborative effort of this entire safety plan process, and we really are looking forward to continuing our work with Marcus, with Captain McBain, with Captain Reed in the morning. We are going to be meeting with them to actually start handing out our collateral for the Silver Spring Safety Alliance, which is another enhancement to the work that is already being done to what this bill is already going to do for us. So I'm going to say thank you to everybody who's here as well for all of your efforts on the behalf of the business community in Greater Silver Spring. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Helsing. Thank you, Chief and council members. Mr. County Executive, we had, before we transitioned to the bill signing, we had a little bit of technical
I've
difficulties.
heard about this.
Audio. While you were speaking, so if you would, can we have some of your remarks again? Don't hate me for this, come on.
You don't have to do that. I memorized it for you.
Look, everything's been repeated that I said in the beginning. I mean, this is basically, you know, I guess the major points are, you know, we're in a different situation where we were before. These are things we wouldn't have normally done. We made decisions to go ahead and implement policies, practices that were out of our ordinary because we were dealing with a situation in the county that is out of the ordinary. It is not strictly Silver Spring. We've heard issues raised in other communities around the county, and we will be using this. This is a countywide policy. There are going to be standards, there are going to be compliance requirements for businesses that are open between 12 and 2. If they have two incidences that can be traced to those establishments, either where they happened or where they originated, they will have to comply. From 2 to 5, anybody who's open from 2 to 5, selling cannabis, hookah, you can't sell alcohol, but food, then you're going to have to come into compliance as well. And those are important things. What I didn't say the first time, and I could say it, is that I just wanted to thank Jacob Newman, Carson Henry, and the whole team in Silver Spring, because they played a big role in bringing people together for these conversations, and which leads to what Stephanie talked about, the other work in terms of the group of citizens and government and police that will continue to work to further communications. Jacob played a huge role in that. In Silver Spring, he's been really, really diligent, would be an understatement in terms of how we've approached this. And, you know, we did begin this with beginning late night enforcement that involved the state even going into establishments and looking for illegal sales and after-hour sales of alcohol. So we've been working at this seriously, and I just want people to realize, you know, we do not take safety for granted. And we do not think that it's okay to let the safety situation deteriorate. And collectively, we've taken action to put us in a position to make Silver Spring safer and of the rest of the county safer as well. Now, for questions?
Yes. Now we're going to open it up for the members of the media. Questions regarding the signing of Bill 1423. And let's wait for a couple minutes, see if the members of the media pop up any questions in the general chat.
Get food.
Music.
Any questions? Give them a going once, going
Nothing?
twice.
Members of the media who are joining us virtually? Any questions regarding this particular topic? Going once? Twice? All right, then we transition to the bill signing.
Yeah, that's a good sign.
Okay, so
This is exciting.
You want them to do a signing, you want to do a shot first, Clark?
Clark, what do you want to stage?
Want to do a shot before he signs? Or it doesn't matter?
I think they want you to
Action shot.
Because I will miss the line if I
All right, just look.
Look at his look.
Today is the...
Yes.
Then can we get you all looking down at him signing? That'd be great. Looking down at the county executive signing.
Try, you've got 6 more of these. Try to get it right.
Más o menos. Súbete first.
It's still the same.
24.
Still.
Just to the 24.
concerned that they should keep the next one, the original. You have to.
We got 7.
You're
They're
good.
the same,
We
right?
got 7.
You've done this before.
Yep.
That's not a good look.
Excuse me, boss. You have.
The chair.
I'll take that. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Proud, they're all the same. I will point out my signatures are not the same.
Your signature, what?
The signature, I never saw the name.
Are you serious?
No.
Yeah, nobody does. Oh, I do.
Okay, so I guess I did something wrong.
That's how we know forgery happens.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Right.
Well, I should give it to the
Yeah,
chief.
That's
Give
okay.
it to the chief.
You tell them where's your handwriting?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll just be the assistant.
Yes.
One for the records.
The one for the record.
This is expedited. It actually is in February.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the clock is ticking on
Yeah,
those
they're
regs.
great.
Everybody should just.
We started on Monday on the regs.
Yeah.
Word.
One more shot.
All right.
All right.
Everyone looking up, hold up your copy of it. With the seal.
Yeah, the
facing.
seal, that's
Yeah.
good.
It's not official, but.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us this
Yes,
afternoon. For the members of the media joining us virtually through Zoom, we're going to transition at this time. We're all going to go in front of our devices so that we can continue the media briefing and public health update. Thank you for being here this
Thank you
afternoon.
for having us.
Council members?
Thank you.
I guess I can do the exit.
Thank you all. As they transition, we're going to give the public health update. There we go. Just a quick update. I will toss to Sean O'Donnell, who will talk a little bit about COVID, but before that, just want to give continued updates on our opioid and fentanyl strategy. Our opioid intervention task force continues to meet to talk about restitution fund dollars and how those will be implemented. And one of the things that the group is considering is around wastewater surveillance for opioids and fentanyl. We want to make sure that we explore all angles of that.
Well, thank you, everybody, for continuing to join us virtually at this time. Mr. County Executive, whenever you're ready, and joining us here is our Health Officer, Dr. Tisha Davis, as well as Mr. Sean O'Donnell from the Department of Health and Human Services.
I think they were going.
Dr. Bridges. Dr. Bridges is the Acting Director for the Department of Health and Human Services. Mr. County Executive, you're ready. Welcome. Again, floor is yours.
Dr. Davis, were you talking at that point?
I was. I'll
Why don't
continue.
you continue? Yes.
I'll continue with it. We'll toss it over. It just was sharing around our beginning to explore wastewater surveillance as an option for opioid and fentanyl surveillance as part of our response within the county. It is in the very early exploratory phase. There are potential great opportunities in being able to strategically target certain areas. Much in the way of COVID, we were able to see where hotspots might be coming up before we saw it in the data. That same opportunity would exist with opioids and fentanyl and being able to target resources in those areas. And at the same time, wanting to make sure that we do that in a way, if we do that, that it would be done in a way that is reflective of the community, that takes into ethical considerations and health disparities. And so that is part of our strategy. That one of the things that we are starting to explore as we continue to expand on resources to address the opioid and fentanyl crisis. With that, I can toss it back to you, County Executive, or we can turn to Sean for a brief COVID update.
You guys finish your health briefing, go to Sean, and then I'll just kind of close out and take questions.
Okay.
All right. So going into the surveillance we have for COVID, the good news is in across the globally, COVID has been continued to recede as it has the previous few weeks, few months. There's no update this week, and we'll do bi-weekly updates on our variant proportions, but with very little activity of COVID in our area, these variants are not causing as much significant illness. There are still people who are getting COVID. Their illnesses have tended to be much more mild recently, especially if they are up to date on their vaccinations. As you can see from our tracking of transmission rates, we had a peak of a few weeks that came back down, and we've been holding relatively steady in this fairly low transmission level. Again, these are PCR tests only, so there are lots of people who are getting COVID, but as you can see from our hospital numbers, not a lot of them are going to the hospital. So we just continue to preach caution for those who are at greater risk due to being immunosuppressed or having underlying conditions, which includes our populations who are a bit older, whose immune systems are not as resilient as our younger populations. We are getting lots of data still through our state partners, and both case rates and hospitalization rates statewide. The number of hospital beds with a COVID patient is two fewer. Is two fewer people in those beds than there was a week ago. So again, it seems to be fairly stable at that more significant illness level. Our emergency departments are not experiencing any significant uptick recently, and overall we have 4 fewer patients in our Montgomery County hospitals with a COVID diagnosis than we did when we talked to you last week. Just a reminder, we're still doing vaccinations. We still are handing out free rapid test kits at our libraries and a few rec centers. Please go online to see the full list of them. If you do need a PCR test, please use the CDC link to find out where you can go. It's covered usually by insurance. If you don't have insurance, these locations will ensure that you don't have out-of-pocket costs. And then finally, just wanted to mention, as some of the data that's available to our federal, state, and local partners has changed, that we are coming up with new metrics for determining triggers for safety protocols. One of the things that has happened over the last month is that many of our local hospitals, with this decreasing level of transmission, have decided to go to optional masking in their healthcare facilities, where previously it was mandatory. They are still using masking if patients request it. They're still using masking around patients who are symptomatic or when patients share rooms. But the state has offered a new guidance as to when hospitals should go back to, or healthcare facilities should go back to, mandatory masking, and that would be when the hospitalization rate for the range of respiratory diseases meets or exceeds 10 hospitalizations per 100,000 residents. So it's a new metric. We just want to share that. We continue to look at data to guide the information we give to the public and the public health decisions and healthcare decisions that are made. At this time, I'd like to toss it back to our county executive for any additional comments or questions.
So just a couple of additional things I want to say. We just got finished with the bill signing for the late night safety bill, and I was joined by 4 council members on this. And I'm very happy we got this legislation passed that sets requirements that businesses have plans for how they're going to operate late night, and they have to have safety plans specifically. And it has penalties for businesses that don't comply, and that penalties can be rather severe if people don't comply. So we're hopefully this is going into effect now, and the regulations will be done shortly. A couple of other things. One is, this is Memorial Weekend we're going into, and this is, a time of lots of celebration. I think, you cannot have seen the larger number of traffic accidents, many of them involving high speed, that we've been seeing on the roads. And I know I talk to people anecdotally who all feel that driver behavior has actually gotten worse in general. And I hope everybody will try to be extra careful this weekend, because there are likely to be a lot of people who will be at parties, coming home from parties later in the evening. And we want people to get home safely. There are, still ways of calling and getting a ride home if you're not sober. Please take advantage of these things rather than putting yourself and other people at risk. And the last thing I just want to note for today is Luther Reynolds, who was one of our ranking officers in the police department and had gone on in his career, has just died last week. And we know that he's going to be missed by many people. I worked with him as a council member, and he was just a really great person to work with. He was forthcoming. He was really committed to serving this community. We know that he went on to be a chief in another community, and that's something you have to actually always, you have to look at somebody's graduation to a chief position as a sign of their success in having served in the place they left. And he was really an asset to this community. So I just wanted to acknowledge his loss. I know a lot of folks in the police department are acknowledging his loss and feel it as well. So I just wanted to be clear that we recognize his loss as well. And with that, I'm going to stop for today and just take questions from people. Questions can be on anything you want to talk about, as usual.
Thank
No,
you, Mr.
please,
County
ma'am.
Executive, Mr. Daniel and Dr. Davis, members of the media. This is the time we open it up for general questions and or public health questions. We'll give you a couple of minutes. Please use the chat and let us know if you have any questions. I don't see anything on the chat. We'll give it one more second. Going once, going twice. Members of the media.
Well, somebody has a question.
Somebody has a question about the budget. Who is that?
MCM?
Huh?
Is it Montgomery? It says Montgomery County to everyone.
Raise your hand on the chat using the Zoom. Oh, okay. It's you, Jeannie. There you are from Oka 360. Go ahead. Ask your question.
Hi, I'm sorry, that's gone through weird. Hi, so I'm writing about kind of how some of the council members who did not vote for the 4.7% tax increase are concerned that that increase is too low and that the budget will be unsustainable. Obviously, Mr. Elrich, as you proposed the 10% increase, I'm guessing you would agree with that. Could you speak a little bit about what you think in the budget that's more than likely going to go through on Thursday? What parts may be unsustainable, what we might see as an issue, and how you plan to work with the council and county staff to kind of work through those issues, as this seems to be the budget we're going with.
Yeah, it's not sustainable. And, I'll start with, it's hard to pick where to start, but I'll give you some examples. They cut money for homeless sheltering. So you get a report saying you've got a record number of homelessness, and then the budget response is to reduce the sheltering funding. Those two things don't match. We all know that fuel prices, skyrocketed. They have not come back down to earth entirely. We had our budget included inflation adjustments, as did the school system, for all of their costs, which are going to inflate. Those were not funded. For the school system, it was, 26 million. For us, it was, for fuel, it was, millions of dollars, not $26 million. But there are a number of places where the costs just were not recognized, and these are absolutely going to happen. So instead of having money in the budget to do this, the council will have to be sending over an endless stream probably of supplemental funding requests. And it's a shame because that money will then come out of the reserves instead of being funded by the budget that we proposed. And the school system is not going to be able to hire a large number of teachers. It's something, the total number of staff is something like over 200 staff. And these are important things we have to fund. And the suggestion from the council was they use the federal ESSER funds. That's all fine and well for this year. Next year, when the ESSER funds are gone, either you're going to ask the school system to fire all the people they hired this year, or you're going to have to plug the money into the budget next year again and have a discussion about taxes again that we shouldn't have had to have. So, and those are, the big things. We'll have a bigger list by tomorrow, but I'd just say, just in general, I proposed 10 cents because of some constraints the council put on how I could fund the budget. And there were a couple of things that we could have changed, and I'll go back and I'll say this again. I told the council from day one, we could have gotten to 6 cents without making cuts. So their $4.7 million budget, or 4.7 cent increase, cuts funding for climate change. It cuts funding for sidewalks and street lighting in our urban centers. And I can make a list, and I will make a list of all the things it cuts, other than what I originally talked about, that are where you're actually going to have to go get funding. I mean, we can do without fixing sidewalks. Residents may not appreciate it. They may not appreciate the lack of lighting. We're not going to do without fuel. We're going to have to run buses and police cars and everything else we run here. So I'm really concerned about what they've done with the schools, though, because these cuts are serious. And to just appropriate money to the schools in tranches, if I can give you a comparison, when the council made cuts in our budget, at least they said, we want to cut this staff person or not start this program. With the school system, they never reviewed the school system's budget. That was available to review. They could have reviewed it anytime they want. They could have looked at the request for $300 million and looked at what was embedded in that request and maybe approached it from a more like with a scalpel instead of a sledgehammer, and said, maybe we don't want to fund some of these things. I could have given them a list of things maybe we didn't need to fund, but I never would have said, don't fund teaching positions or expansion of special education or these other things. And that's what the council's done. So that can they kick to next year. And that's, in my mind, is a real problem. We could have brought it down. Again, I said, with 3 to 4 cents, we would have gone into OPEB. So for you county residents who are listening, you're paying taxes every year for the entire cost of retiree health benefits, the entire cost. In contrast, the school system has an OPEB fund it's part of our fund. On their fund, they take out $27 million a year from the fund in order to pay for part of the retiree healthcare benefit. I suggested taking out 1 to 2 cents that would have paid for part of the employee in retirement benefit, but it would have freed up 1 and 2 cents that we're already taxing people for and allowed that money to go into the budget. I suggested going deeper into reserves. We sent over a budget that we knew on day one was deeper than what the council wanted. But I want to remind everyone again, the target for reserves in this county was 10%. This is the first administration that ever made 10%. We ended June 30th last year with 14%. And we had an anomaly because of what happened with the housing market that reduced our revenues pretty substantially. Most people expect this to recover as interest rates approach 5%. So I was comfortable going a little deeper into the reserves, partly because of that, and partly because we have an enormous amount of money that we're going to be getting from FEMA. So on the one hand, the county said, you can't use the money that you don't know you're going to have. And then they appropriated money from FEMA that they don't know they're going to have either, but decided it was okay when they were appropriating it. So those two steps alone, along with the 1 cent, which I agreed with the council on, the school system shouldn't have their own reserves. They reappropriated 22 million toward the budget, which is why we could have easily gotten the 3 or 4 cents. So we might have wound up with the 6 cent tax rate and funded everything in the budget, all the things that people wanted for homelessness, street repairs, lighting, I could go on. Climate change people, we passed a climate change plan where we need people to actually work with businesses and residents to implement the plan, and they cut the people who are supposed to do that work. The council makes a big issue about economic development. They cut people we have in the economic development department who are going out, actually working with small businesses. None of that had to happen, but for the obsession with cutting the tax rate. And I'll just close by saying, I just saw a chart about Washington area, from Washington area boards of education on per pupil spending. Every single Northern Virginia county is higher than Montgomery County. And I've showed people the charts before on the state. Of the big counties are higher than Montgomery County on per pupil spending for schools. This is our best asset, and it's the biggest part of this county's reputation. And for us to allow school spending to slip to the point that we're spending 80% of what we spend in 2010 is a mistake. And we've just compounded the mistake. I'll stop there. I could go on forever.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Ginny, do you have any follow-up questions?
Nope, that covered it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members of the media, any other questions for the county executive and or the officials joining us this afternoon? No more questions? Going once? Going twice? I guess we're done for today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a safe afternoon, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you.
Bye.